Hi, it's Chris Titley here on today's episode of Scoreboard. I'm joined by Caitlyn Bowell. Caitlyn, thank you so much for coming in to the impromptu studio.
Thank you for having me.
Caitlyn, for the listeners out there, I'd like to sort of start with 2025 for you. How's it been so far?
So far, it's been good. I think it's been busy in all aspects. So sporting-wise, I've had state championships and trainings up and running, and then work-wise, that kind of never really stopped over the Christmas break. So that's still going strong.
And also for the listeners out there, I'd love you to explain your role as an athlete and what you do.
So I do sprint canoe, which is kind of like a really skinny boat. I'm in a lunge position and I have a paddle and I'm paddling one side and I can't swap sides, otherwise we get disqualified. So it's a little bit of a physical strain, but I'm up for the challenge.
Sprint canoe. Okay. So one side only, which is the side that you choose to?
I paddle on the left.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my right leg's in front, left knee is in like a little knee block that kind of keeps the base leg stabilized, and then the paddle is on the left-hand side.
And then by yourself?
Yes.
Right. Okay. And can you do it with someone else?
You can. There isn't anyone up here that I've done it with competitively, but when I used to live in Adelaide, we used to practice in doubles all the time. And when we go down to nationals in a few short weeks, I'm sure we'll be doing doubles.
And it is an Olympic sport and it's very well known and publicised globally. How have you found Australia in terms of sprint canoe, in terms of the competition, etc.?
I think the competition's really good. We had two girls go back in Tokyo 2020/2021 when it was pushed back from COVID. And they did well, but I think it's still an up-and-coming sport. So I think there's still a lot of room for growth in the sport, which I think is really exciting.
And how did you get into it?
So I was a elite diver, the platform and springboard diver. I started that when I was 15, turning 16, so a little bit later in life.
Later in life at 15 for
yes.
being an elite diver.
Yes.
Wow. I learn something every day.
Yes. So I started that, and one of the first things they said was, you're starting pretty late. You're going to have a lot of catching up to do. And I went, no problem. Like, this is a challenge. I will get there. So I did that for about 4.5, 5 years, but it ended when they said that I was too old to ever make it. So I got kicked out of the program, and so I wasn't done with my Olympic dream. It kicked me down a lot, not going to lie, but I think it only fueled my fire to find something else that I'm really good at. And that's when I did a scouting day at the Queensland Academy of Sport. So they had various testing stations set up, and then kind of like scouts from different sports there to kind of watch how you're doing. And from that, I had a couple of sports approach me, but I chose to go with kayaking and canoeing.
Right. So the scout day is like, okay, I'm pretty good at something. You think you're pretty good at something, but maybe there's an alteration in terms of, this is more suited to you. Is that how that day worked, sort of roughly?
Yeah, it was kind of like you turned up, there was maybe 20 or 30 people, athletes there. And then there was like a sprinting station where you had to run 100 meters, cycling as fast as you could. The kayaking and canoeing station that they had set up was bench pull. And you had the 20-kilo bar and you had to pull it as many times as you could in a minute. And then they would compare you to kind of how everyone else went. And then from how well you did in the exercise, they would obviously say, hey, we think you might be really good at this, or hey, we might pass. But sprinting was good, triathletics kind of thing.
Just back to the diving for a second, saying that you're too old. What's the sort of optimum age for a sort of an Olympic diver?
Listen, I'm still asking myself that, because I've seen 30-year-olds and higher compete. I mean, even in gymnastics, there's an international lady that competes and she's a grandma at, 40 or 50. So I don't know what they were looking for. I think maybe he had a specific age in mind that he thought maybe women would perform better at that. But I think that I can perform my best if I put my mind to it. And if I put the effort into training, I can perform my best at any age.
Yeah. Do you miss diving?
I do. I think I was really good at it. I think for the short amount of time that I did it, I really proved myself. And looking back, I think one thing that I get stuck on is, so I still volunteer judge diving. I'm a level 5, so second highest judge. So one away from being international. And I also coach. So I've been a coach for 10 years. I think So being so involved in the sport even today was quite a struggle after such a heartbreak ending to it. But I think looking back now, I'm like, I think I would have done really well at this comp. Or, looking back at my old dives, I'm like, man, I think I would have got it. And so I think that's a little bit hard for me to process. But
you still got the connection.
I still got the connection, yeah.
But then looking as a judge, you're like, actually, I could do that.
Well, yeah, some days I've been retired for a while now, and then some days I'm like, man, I really feel like doing a front 3.5 off 10. And I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? I'm like, Caitlyn, you're 25 25 years old. Hang on a second. Yeah.
And then the kayaking, which turned to canoeing, sprint canoeing from the QAS day. Do you want to talk about that, your first race and getting out there and going, wow, this is a little bit different to diving?
Oh, goodness me. From the scouting day, I thought that they meant kayaking. So I was like, man, yeah, I can sit down. I've kayaked on camp. I can do that.
That's all right. Grade 12 camp or whatever it might be. Yeah.
I was like, sure, yes, we're going to try. And I got down there and they had the canoe. I said, what is that? And they were like, this is the canoe. You're going to, be in a lunge, one leg. I'm like, oh, yep, okay, sure. And they put me in it and pushed me out into the Gold Coast Canal. And they're like, just try and balance. We're just going to see how you are. So I'm balancing. I'm like, this is good. I'm doing okay. And then they go, now try and take a stroke. So I'm like, I lift the paddle up, fall in the water. And I'm laughing, bringing the boat in. And then everyone's running down to the water going, get out, get out, get out. And I didn't realize that, the bull sharks and the canal could have probably eaten me right up. So I was an Olympic swimmer to the shore because I swam there so fast.
Someone should have got a video of it. You probably here's the time trial.
Yeah, exactly. But from that, I think I just thought this is a really good physical and mental challenge for me, and I'm never one to turn down a challenge. So I just kept working at it. First many months I was just doing circles because obviously with the one-sided paddle, you're basically pushing yourself in a circle. So you have to learn the specific technique of the stroke, like a J stroke, so that you're pushing the back of the boat to straighten. And then my first competition, I only had one goal, and it was just to get from point A to point B without falling in. And I think from memory, I did it. And then on one of the races, I tried to push myself a little bit faster because Kenny Wallace, one of the Olympic kayakers, said, just go really fast off the start line. And paddled too fast and fell in within the first 5 meters, but that's okay. I still hit my goal of, getting from point A to point B, which is all I could have asked for.
You sound like you're very competitive.
Oh, extremely.
Where's that come from?
I wish I knew. I think I've been involved in sport all my life. From a young toddler, I was doing dancing, and then it was soccer, and then, throughout school, I would try and be involved in as many sports as I could. But elite-wise, I've been kind of at that elite level since I was 11, 12, from gymnastics to diving to obviously sprint canoeing. So I think it's just been in me for so long that I don't know any different.
Yeah, we've interviewed a number of athletes that love the team sport, but then also love the individual side of things. What's your take on that?
I think I love both, but I think I would be mentally kind of thinking if I did something wrong, I wouldn't want to let other people down. Whereas if it was an individual sport and I let myself down, I'm like, okay, you did that because of this. Okay, what are we going to work on next time? Whereas as a team, there's so many variables that can obviously come into play for winning. But I do really love team sports, but I think I haven't done them in so long. I think I'm just...
And the competitive is like, it's on me. Everything's on me.
Exactly, and I have to be accountable for it. Whereas, diving, I did do synchronized diving, and I did really like that. So I competed at the Com Games trials prior to the Gold Coast comp, and that was really cool. But again, you've got two people there, and even though you might perform really well and do a great dive, there's always room for error. So I think I would just like to have myself accountable, and I like the individual aspect of it because it's just me, and I control if I do well, and I control if I don't put the effort in, then I'm not going to be competing how I want it to compete. So that's on me.
From gymnastics to diving to kayaking, not to sprint canoeing. It sounds like these sports are very technical. It requires a lot of balance, a lot of physical exertion, a lot of muscles that you probably don't use on a day-to-day basis. How have you gone about keeping yourself fit and with all through those different sports? And is there some sort of advice that you can give to people that are doing those sports?
I think everything that I've done has been both physically and mentally demanding. I think the transfer from diving to canoeing is a little bit of a different physical and mental demand. You know, diving, I'm hurling myself off a 10-meter platform, which if I hit my head, you know, I could die. Or whereas versus the mental kind of side of canoeing is I'm 100 meters into a sprint race and I want to give up, but I have to push myself past that pain barrier and keep going. So it's a little bit of a mental thing. And then obviously the sharks was a mental thing for me.
For sure.
Don't fall in, otherwise you're going to get eaten. But in a race, it's more so, you know, I'm mentally done. I'm mentally so tired. I've been racing for 5 days. I don't want to do this, but it's pushing past that negativity and going, you know, 150 more meters, like just push past the pain. You'll get there. It's going to be good. And then obviously the physical side of this, yes, diving is, I think, more technical, similar to gymnastics. There's more of an aesthetic and quality kind of thing because you're getting judged. Whereas canoeing is you start, if you finish first, you're first. You're not judged on how pretty you look doing it. It's just how fast you get there. But physical wise, I think having to be in a lunge position for so long and lopsided, I think in the gym I try and do, rather than one-sided things, I try and balance it out and just work out as per normal so that I'm evenly balanced and not walking around with a limp or a hunch from just doing one-sided things. But I like variety. I like changing it up. I don't like when you get stuck in a routine and doing something, turning up, you feel stagnant and bored. I like to keep things exciting, so I do running, gym work, and then canoeing on the side obviously is the water aspect of things. But yeah, mainly just keeping it nice and mixed up with the land training.
Yeah, I was going to say the sort of the week in the life of leading up to a race of sprint canoeing. Do you want to give the listeners a bit of an insight into your preparation and your training routine?
Mine's probably a little bit different only because I work as a pediatric nurse, so 12.5-hour shifts don't really give me too much of a window before or after a shift because, you know, I'm starting at 6:45 a.m. and I don't finish until 7:15 p.m. And I train down at the Gold Coast, so it's a little bit of a trek for me to get there. But leading into States, I did kind of like a slower week. I didn't want to push myself too hard in the training sessions leading up to it so that I'm burnt out for States because that would defeat the purpose. But I did 2 sessions on the water and then I did 2 gym sessions and a run just to kind of keep my body moving. And then on race day, I just turn up a bit earlier, go for a light paddle just to get a feel, make sure everything's feeling good, check my knee block placement, make sure I'm feeling okay, there's no niggles, and then go from there. But I try and warm up as best as I can on the race day, not just get on, you know, right before the race and then, you know, a muscle's then torn.
Yeah. And how did you go at States?
I did well. I got 1 gold and 2 silvers.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good start to the year. And you said you've got nationals coming up?
Yes. Kind of like the second week of March, I'm headed down to the Penrith International Rowing Centre.
Not too long away.
Yeah, so doing that, which is cool.
Now, you touched on that you're a pediatric nurse. Where did that come from in terms of the study and the idea to become a pediatric nurse? And again, it sounds like with elite sport and going back to pediatric nurse, there's a fair bit of perspective that you see on a day-to-day basis. How do you manage that?
Well, I got into nursing. So straight out of school, I actually did civil engineering. I loved graphics and art in school, but doing that whilst diving, you know, I did the first year, and it was so empowering as well because I was the only female left by the end of the year. It was male dominated, and I think there was only 8 girls that started off, and you know, each week kind of one would drop off. So I felt that empowerment going, I've lasted a year, I've done this. But the tutors kind of said, listen, you've done the first year, it's only going to get harder, and engineering is a 24/7 kind of job. So you kind of need to pick whether you're going to do your sport or do this. And I said, well, I'm going to do my sport. I'm only going to be fit, like this fit, for a short amount of time. But, you know, I can come back and study anytime if I did feel like I wanted to do engineering. And I think just over the course of time throughout life, I've lost some friends to mental health illnesses. I've lost family members. And I've seen the difference that good nursing and obviously doctors can have on not only the patient, but the family members and the friends that come in. You're in your most vulnerable time at the hospital. You don't know what everyone else is going through, and yet in that moment when you're going through what feels like the worst moment of your life, losing a family member or a friend, the nurses are there to comfort and help you. And, the little things that they do, let you stay back an hour just so that you can stay with your family member, or bring sandwiches in because you don't want to leave the hospital room. So from that, after I lost my grandma, I instantly knew that that's what I wanted to do. And I love helping people, but I want to make a difference, and I want to make their lives better, even if it's for 2 days that I get to spend with them on the ward, or 8 hours that they're in for a day surgery.
And the study with that would have been fairly intense as well while you're training?
Yeah, so it was 3 years and then 800 hours of placement, which was unpaid. So it was a hectic time trying to balance, obviously, placement, training, and then work so that I can actually have money to pay for fuel to get to placement. But we made it work. We're here. And that was a really big achievement for me to graduate from university and in something that I love doing as well.
Yeah, the money thing, just touching on that in regards to the sprint canoeing as well. Obviously, there's a lot of cost involved in training to go to the Gold Coast, and kit and equipment and travel, etc. How do you go with that, and what are you doing to try and help with your fundraising?
Yep. So there's not a lot of money in sprint canoeing, but it is expensive. I mean, the boats themselves cost thousands of dollars, and I think I've been struggling with it recently only because late last year, my family and I, we lost our house and belongings. So with that came not only the cost to try and cover for, states and nationals coming up, but having to replace all of my activewear and my knee block, because obviously all of that got thrown out. So the replacement of things really sent me back. But I was really fortunate enough to be a part of the Aussie Athlete Fund last year, which was Nat Cook, one of the Olympians. She basically got 100 athletes across Australia and said, I know how hard it is to support yourself in sport. She's done it. And she's gone, I'm going to give you, basically, I call it the toolkit. So she's not giving us money. She's giving us the knowledge and education that we need in order to put ourselves out there, gain the confidence, and basically showing us how to network with individuals and businesses so that we can then get donations from them. So from that, I did well. I created some fundraising days through diving and got some donations just by emailing and ringing every single business that I found on Google. And then from that, I was fortunately selected for the Elevate program, which was cutting down the number to 20 athletes. And so there's been obviously 20 of us for the last, I think, since December. And we've been given more education, more tools to add to our toolkit, and I've raised $5,000 so far. So it's been good, but I think I'm not going to stop just when the program stops. I'm going to keep going until I get to where I want to go.
That's fabulous. How can people help and support you?
I have a sports foundation page. So on my socials, I have a link. And then if you see me in person, I have a QR code. But and I'm in the process of doing business cards as well, because I have a couple of events coming up where I'm just going to be hounding the businessmen and women to scan my QR code and see if they can help out in any way. But I think what's great about it is when telling people about it, you can tell them that it's tax deductible, and then people are more inclined to do it.
So maybe you go in June, like just before the end of the financial year, and
just door knocking.
Maybe have a QR on your T-shirt or something. Yeah?
I do have a T-shirt actually. One of the companies that
you're one step ahead.
Yeah, one of the companies that work with Aussie Athlete Fund, Fanwear, they contacted me, and they're creating T-shirts for all the athletes to try and obviously help fundraising, because for each T-shirt payment that comes through, a little bit goes back to the athlete so that they can put it into their donation.
Excellent. Okay, that's a good idea as well. Yeah. Leading up to the Olympic Games in 3 years away, your aspirations, your dream, have you always wanted to be in the Olympics? Has it been a Caitlyn dream from a young age?
I was actually thinking about this on the way over. I think it stemmed from when I got into gymnastics and I was told that there was a chance that I was going to go far in it. So when you kind of go from jumping through hula hoops to flipping on the floor and, doing a more elite level, I was like, this could be it. This is my chance. This is my shot. I saw the gymnast. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to get the Olympic rings tattooed on me. I want a medal. I want a podium. I want to wear green and gold. So that's always been in my mind. And I think after the setback of the previous sport, I think it kind of just made that fire grow just more because I was like, I'm not done. And I'm not just going to walk away and that's it, dust my hands. I'm like, what can I do? How am I going to get there? Whether it's playing badminton or like what sport am I going to do because I need to get to the Olympics. So it's definitely been a long-term goal.
Yeah, Caitlyn, you sound very confident and you sound very resilient as well. There's been a lot of resilience that you sort of mentioned around your family as well, and obviously the job that you see. Can you talk about that trait and a personality trait for you and how you've used resilience in your life?
Goodness. I think I struggled with it for a while. I went through a couple of things in diving that I'll briefly touch on, but bullying, sexual harassment, toxic environment. And I think that the person that I was when I started diving, I would love to be able to get back to that person. But I think it's taken me a couple years to rebuild myself, which is okay. Like I went through a lot. But I feel like my resilience from that has helped me just not be a shell of a person. I think I've gone, you know what? I am really good and I am good at this and I have talent and I am smart, and not letting all that negativity and what the people say set in to be true. But I think my parents really had a huge impact on me, just telling me, that's okay, you fell down, get back up. That's all right. You're not done. They've always been really supportive and encouraging in whatever I do, whatever aspect, whatever pillar of life I'm focusing on. They've always been extremely encouraging. And still to this day, they're just my biggest support team.
Yeah, the support crew and your friends and family. You saying you're openly about your Olympic dream and saying what you're doing in the competitions, and how much does it mean when you compete in the States and you get a gold or a silver and you get these text messages or Instagram messages from your friends and family?
Yeah, it feels really good. I wasn't expecting my mum and dad to come to States. I hadn't really told many people about it just because, it was kind of my first competition of the year, and then my first competition back in a while after I had hand surgery. So I was a little bit nervous, and I was like, we won't think of it as a big deal. We're just going to go in, set a goal, get to the finish, stay upright. The night before, my mum and dad said, oh, so what time is it tomorrow? And I just kind of got a bit emotional because I'm like, wow, they're still wanting to come down and support me, and I wasn't expecting it. So the love and support I get from them is just out of this world. It's so lovely because I know not a lot of people get that. So
yeah, and then the friends that send you messages, etc. And how does that impact you?
They were a bit mad at me that I didn't invite them down, but they're
like,
supportive.
Say what now? I just saw that photo.
Yeah, they were like, Caitlyn, you didn't tell us that you were competing. I'm like, I'm so sorry, but next time. But no, they're gorgeous, and they're girls that I used to compete with and train with in diving. So a lasting relationship that's come out of that, which has been so amazing. But yeah, they're so supportive, and we have a little girls chat, and we're always hyping each other up, whatever we're doing, whether it's work-wise or sport-wise.
Back in my day, when you competed at events, you'd probably get a little result tab in the Courier Mail about 7 pages deep in the sporting section to say how you've done in particular events, or maybe even not at all. But now we've got social media. We've got things that you can tell people about. How have you used that as a tool to kind of be a little bit more open and transparent about your journey and what you're doing, and Caitlyn off the water as well?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. I was talking about this to some of the other athletes last week, and I was saying that I love being open and honest on socials and not just showing like the highlights reel. So you see quite a few of the influencers or social media users today, they only show the good side, yet we know that there's going to be ups and downs. That's part of life.
Yeah, no one can actually win and compete forever at the top forever.
Exactly.
And anything, there's got to be injuries and losses and etc. Yeah.
And so I think what I wanted to show, because, you know, that might be all well and good. Someone scrolling through going, man, that looks awesome. Oh, great. Liking it, saving it, commenting. But I want to be the person that's like, I fell in a race, completely stuffed it up. But you know what? I came back the next comp and I got in and I got a PB, or, you know, not feeling up to it. I'm feeling really slow. I feel really unmotivated. I don't want to do this, but you know what? I'm going to get up and go for a walk. So showing that kind of flip side of, you know, when you are feeling burnt out, or when it's leading to that way, or you're feeling sick or low, or you just feel like you just want to lay in bed or just watch Netflix all day and do nothing, showing that that is normal and it's okay to feel like that, but what can you do to still make it productive, or what can you do to make you feel better, whether it's, you know, putting music on and dancing stupidly in the lounge room to get those emotions back, or, you know, sitting down and listening to relaxing music while you're coloring in, if that's going to help you get the craziness of your mind back to a level that you're happy with. But I think it's not touched on as much as I would like to see in social media today, but just showing the flip side that not everything is as it seems, and it's not an easy pathway for people. It is hard and you have to work tirelessly for years, and it still might not come. And that's the reality of it. You know, I could be doing this, and I was saying that to the athletes, you know, what if we're doing this and we're telling people this goal and we're putting in the effort, and you get to the comp and it doesn't happen. And, you know, that's okay. Those people that you've now had on your social media following, they've been with you on this journey. They've been with you through the ups and the downs and the days where you didn't want to train, but the days where you went out and you trained 3 sessions and different things. They've been with you. They're supporting you, not for your sport. That's just, like you said, a pillar of something that you are. You have multiple different aspects to you. And I think that's something that I'm slowly acknowledging, that it's okay if I fail, but I'm going to get back up and I'm going to try again. And I think my social media following know that about me. Definitely my friends and family know that I'm not one to give up. And yeah,
just touching on that with the goals and the goal setting and the big, hairy, audacious goal of the Olympics, and then sort of breaking that down into states where you won and you got a second as well. Is that right? Gold and silver. How do you think about goals and sort of, I suppose, breaking it down into, is it 6 months, 3 months, next race, etc.? Because it's an interesting topic. The other athletes that I've chatted to around, and one yesterday who plays AFL, who's like, yes, the goal is to win a premiership, but we don't really talk about it that much because we don't make the finals. We don't play finals. We don't win the final. So, but if we don't win this week, we won't make the finals. So it's back to now. How do you think about it?
I think that there's that, like what you said, there's a huge thing of the Olympics is the end goal. That's where I want to get to. But like you said, that's just at the finish line. There's so many different little races prior to that. You know, there's states, and then nationals, and then Grand Prix, and then, you know, making international competitions. And like what you said, if I don't hit the time at nationals or at a Grand Prix, I'm not going to qualify. So then I'm back to square one, and I've got to wait another year or wait until another competition pops up where I can hit that. So I think it's just staying present, staying in the moment, only looking a few steps ahead to, you know, what is next on the horizon. Obviously, the Olympics is there. It's weighing in the background. It's, you know, the 5 rings that are sitting there going, come on. But, you know, there's a million other things I need to get done before I'm even close to getting that. And I think when you take a step back and look at that, it can be really overwhelming, but staying in that present moment of going, okay, you know, what are my next 2 goals? Okay, yep, ticked them off. Okay, what's next? And just taking it one step at a time, because if you look at the big picture, it can be quite overwhelming and kind of scare you into not even trying.
And I think also touching on the social media thing about, yes, I want to go to the Olympics. And then if you don't make the Olympics, it's like this sense of people, oh, she didn't make the Olympics, it's a bit of failure. Mm-hmm. Whereas I suppose if you do everything you possibly can and give everything your PB and you don't make it, then that's the person that people have been following, right?
Yeah.
Just on the PB thing versus results as well, like I've chatted to a couple of Olympians, and Bronte Barrett was one where she said she came 5th and she did a PB, and it was the best thing because she hadn't done a PB for so long, and it was just the best moment ever. But she got 5th. You know, people go, oh, 5th, sort of a half eye roll, go, oh, that's not so good. How do you see your PB and giving everything and sort of letting the race be, and whatever happens, happens?
I think that obviously with canoeing, you're racing a lot of other people, and, you know, that is what it is. You're racing other people. So it's, yes, you are being compared to others, but like what Bronte said, if I go out and I come 4th or 5th or even last and I get a PB, I'm going to be like, hell yes, what I've been doing is working. Okay, what's my next step? How do I take another 2 seconds off? Part of me will probably go, oh, I came last, but that's all right. The positive of that is that I just, knocked seconds off my time, which I've been trying to do. My training is working. That's the benefit. How do we keep moving forward? And then, the next race I do, even if I come last again and I get another PB, I'm going to have that same thought process. I'm not trying to get stuck in the results kind of thing because, I'm only one girl trying to get to the Olympics and I have to do that by getting quicker. So if I'm knocking seconds off my time, then I'm getting closer.
Yeah. Do you use like technology and data and stuff? Have things changed a little bit since you've started the sport in regards to like different things that people say, oh, you should do this because your heart rate was up and all that sort of stuff?
I don't really have a lot of access to it because I'm kind of by myself with the sport training aspect at the moment. So I think that's also a little bit of a mental challenge that I'm trying to face, even with diving or gymnastics or an individual sport. You still turn up and you train with others, and that can be a motivation for some people. I'm going to go to training, I get to see my friends and my teammates. But when I'm doing shift work and my training sessions don't really align with anyone else on the water, I've got to turn up for me and I'm the only one out there. That can be a little bit daunting because you're like, oh, it's an hour and a half drive, an hour and a half back. Yep. But yeah, so there is that, but that's okay.
Do you get lonely sometimes?
On the water?
Yeah.
A little bit, but I'm thinking of buying a waterproof speaker so I can sing and dance while I'm on the boat.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's different things that go through people's heads, and referencing that podcast with Bronte, she was saying different phrases through different laps in the Olympic things, and the triathletes were humming songs to High School Musical and thinking about shopping lists, and you've got AFL players that switch off and they're thinking about, potentially looking at the crowd and soaking it all in. And what do you think about when you're racing?
I definitely don't look at the crowd because I would definitely fall in. And
that's no good because there could be some sharks.
Yep. And I can't get back in my boat, so I'm disqualified.
Yes.
But I think I zone out quite well externally, so crowd, and if there's, a noise or a bang, I probably wouldn't hear it. But I am focused on, the people either side of me because their wash, the water coming off the back of their boat can affect my race. So I'm looking for, any threat that's kind of coming my way, where I need to go. If I've got water coming this way, is there a path that I can take so I'm not going to feel the big ripple of it? But I am just trying to be so solely focused on, okay, where am I going? Trying to look at my end goal, look at the buoy where I'm headed to, rather than, looking up and being so focused, because 1 second, if you, even try and look to where they are, that could lose you the race. That could make a wobble, that could, lose your rhythm and your momentum, and then you're done just because you wanted to see where people were. So I try not to look at others, just kind of what's there next to me that could have an effect on my movements and my stroke. And then I just go to the finish line.
Do you know where you are in the race?
No.
So at the end you're like, yay, time's good.
Yeah.
Woohoo, oh, second, yay.
We don't even find out the time sometimes until after. So it's online. So, there's not a big scoreboard there where you can finish and look up at like swimming. So you kind of finish and you're kind of counting people and you're like, they look like they're ahead, okay. And then you get off the water and you're like, oh, great, I got second or third. Or so it's a little bit of...
So you don't know?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
I would love a scoreboard just for my own personal reference.
Yeah, it's a good name, Scoreboard, by the way.
Yes, little dropping that in there. But I also really liked, because I remember there was one comp when I was still living in Brisbane, the national coach that was in Adelaide said to me, if I get a PB in this race, he'll give me a boat and I can go down to Adelaide and train at the National Centre. I was like, okay, yes, yep, sure, we're going to do that. So I did the race and went around, we're talking to everyone. I'm like, I don't even know how I did. I'm trying to refresh the web page. And the internet connection's breaking out.
Everyone's like, why is it on 3G?
Everyone's on the internet, so it's just not working. And then it finally loads. And, you know, everyone's patting me on the back because I PB'd, and I went, holy crap, I just got a boat. I get to go and train in Adelaide with all the other girls, and I did it. But it was such a delayed response.
Gratification, I
Yeah,
suppose.
because I was waiting, you know, 10 minutes to see what time I got.
And then if you didn't get a PB, you tried your best anyway, right?
Yeah.
So you're accepting
the
of
next
that.
race, I would be like, okay, this one, if I get a PB, you're going to give me that boat, right?
So between a pediatric nurse and competition and training, is there much downtime? And if there is, what do you kind of think of? What do you do? Do you listen to podcasts? Do you watch a bit of Netflix? What goes on with Caitlyn?
Well, this year's a little bit different because last year I was doing my post-grad, so any spare time that I had, and I was also doing my grad year as a nurse. So anytime I had, I was studying and just submitting assignments or studying for exams. But now that that's over, I do like to enjoy just chilling out and just resting and watching. I like The Office.
Which one? The
US version?
Yes.
Yes.
Because it goes for a lot longer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's genius, isn't it? Have you listened to the podcast? My wife listens to the podcast, The Office podcast.
With Angela and Pam?
Yeah, talking about the whole series and what happened on episode by episode and how they were laughing, you know, and enjoying themselves on every episode. And,
oh, really?
And which was scripted and what was unscripted, etc.
Oh, no, I haven't. But now that you've mentioned it, I'm probably going to do that. But yeah, I love just chilling out, watching a movie, or, you know, putting just a series on in the background that kind of just turns my brain off, because my brain kind of never stops thinking. I'm a little bit of an overthinker and I stress out and about various things. So, yeah.
I'm going to put you on the spot here, a bit of trivia question. What's your favourite scene from The Office?
I can't say it on
What about?
I can't say it on the podcast. I'm going to prompt you.
What about? Oh, you can't say it?
No.
Oh, because it's
a bad word.
Oh, okay. But what about the scene with the Dwight's pretend fire drill? You remember that one?
Yeah,
when they threw the cat up and threw the thing, and he's like got the thing going.
Yeah.
Right, this is that one.
Yeah, that was funny. And then Stanley has a heart attack.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. No, The one I'm thinking of, and I'll let you fill in the gap in your head, but it's when they're doing the education presentations throughout the warehouse and the office, and Michael wants to do better than the warehouse, better than Daryl. And so he stands up on top of the building with the jumping castle, and he plans to jump off to the jumping castle. And then Dwight says, Michael, and he says something. And then Michael goes, Dwight, you ignorant, and then says this word. But it's just so, the way that they've done that scene and how quick they are with their responses, it catches you off guard and you're like, oh my gosh, he's laughing. But
there's a mate of mine who's sort of in his email signature, he's like assistant managing director of this big firm, and I'm like assistant to the managing director. Yeah. And now it's cottoned on. So every time people are saying like, oh, how's assistant to the managing director going?
Oh, I love that.
You know, on the basis of The Office. And this is very proper, very high earning person. We're like, no, you're just an assistant too, not
Secret
assistant.
Santa should be like some business cards with the assistant too.
Yeah. No, such a fabulous series. I've lost my train of thought now, but I'm going to ask actually the Scoreboard moment, which is a sort of a series, not a series. It's a segment within the podcast that I've asked only the last 3 or 4 guests. It is the moment that has defined your career, or a moment that you remember that has actually kicked you along in your sporting life and also life in general. So, Caitlyn, your Scoreboard sporting moment. Actually, no, it's not a sporting moment. It's just a moment. The Scoreboard moment.
So something that's kicked me along.
Or a moment that you remember, whether it be a lot of people have gone back to 12 years old, believe it or not. There's been like 3 people that have gone back to 12 that missed a team in the Nationals or made the Nationals or got rejected or was crying in the car or something like that. But a lot of other people have said, you know, there was a selection or a tournament or something that kept you going. Yeah.
I'm going to have to say my diving journey. And I think for a couple of reasons. I think one side, obviously, being kicked out and told I'm too old at 19, I was kind of like, what? I'm barely an adult kind of thing. And that, like I said, fueled my fire more than I can tell you. And even though it knocked me down, and it took me a while to get back to a person that I was happy being, but it knocked me down because I was like, this is all I know. What do you mean I'm too old? And then I think the other thing that knocked me down was going through the bullying kind of side of things and dealing with all of that. There was a moment where I don't like confrontation, but there was a moment where I went, I need to say something because, this isn't good. No one should have to go through this. And so there was a moment where I went to a staff member and I said, this is happening. I need to tell you about it. It's been going on for months now. Please help me. And the response that I got was not great. And they basically said, he's a somebody, you are a nobody. When you become a somebody, we can do something about it. And that was a moment that I went, okay, first, I just need to be quiet because nothing's going to be done about it. And I kick myself now because I really wish that I had, taken it further or stood up for myself, because that's now the person that I am. And I'm like, I feel so bad for that younger version of Caitlyn for having to go through all of that, because I wasn't the only one going through, toxic environment or bullying. I believe that there's a lot of people going through that. And to have the confidence and just the ability to be like, hey, no, that's not okay. We are going to do something about it, because I think there needs to be more talks about that today.
Yeah, you mentioned the word empowerment. It sounds like you've been empowered by that particular moment, and then there's no room for any of that anymore. The advice that you'd give to younger girls and boys playing sport that may have a situation like that?
I think do not bottle and keep it in, because trust me from experience, it just makes things a whole lot worse, especially from an elite sport level. You're training with, I was training with these people more than I saw my family each week. So, if that's toxic environment, that's a really tough place to be in. Whether it's social sport, school sport, elite sport, I think communication is key. You need to tell someone, whether it's mum, dad, carer, grandma, whoever it is, whoever's looking after you, tell them. And then find someone that you trust within the organization, whether it's like a mental health staff member or a psychologist or, a manager or assistant to the manager, whoever it is. Find someone and just tell them, because it's better to be out and open and tell them what's going on rather than, spend 2 years going through absolute hell, and it then diminishes your own mental and physical health.
That's some great advice out there, and obviously reach out to a trusted source as well. Speaking of advice, some advice for young kids playing sport. You've played multiple different sports. You've competed at the highest level of different sports as well, and you've pivoted to different sports. And now you're going for gold in 28 at the Olympics. There's obviously parents as well that can kick along the progress of kids' sport and help them and encourage them, but there's also parents that maybe are a little bit over enthusiastic and maybe put a bit more pressure on their kids. What's some advice that you give, firstly maybe to the kids and secondly to the parents out there?
I think it's really important, kind of ties back to the last thing, communication is key. So I coach diving, and when a kid comes in, I say, what are you wanting to get from this? Are you wanting to be competitive? Are you wanting to do this? Or are you just wanting to have some fun? If they tell me fun, I'm like, fantastic. We put you in a little, the group with kids that are varying in age but more closely to you. And then we can kind of progress you along at a little bit of a slower rate. Or, if you want to try a front flip one day, we do a front flip. But then the flip side, if someone tells me that they are wanting to compete, they want me to push them, they want me to teach them the dives, they want to do this, I'm like, fantastic, writing the program, you're both on the same page. Most of the time the parents are on the same page as well, or the carers, they're saying, yep, we're wanting the more competitive side, we're wanting to get into the squad. And I'm like, okay, great. I think what kind of gets broken down in the communication there, and I have noticed this working with young kids, is obviously as a parent, when a kid comes home and tells you something, you're going to believe them. But I think that there should be a bridge to meeting with the parent, the kid, and the coach so that everyone's on the same page, because kids tell some fibs sometimes.
Sure do.
I mean, adults tell fibs sometimes too. But, what I've struggled with is, a kid going home and like, this person was mean, or I didn't get to do this. Or I'm like, actually, know what? They weren't listening and I had to sit them out 3 times. Or it was a safety issue and I had to use my stern voice and I had to tell them 1, 2, and 3 because of, X, Y, Z. And that's why they're in a bit of an upset mood. And just communicating so that everyone's on the same level, I think will help the parents understand, okay, yep, your goal's here, but we're going to break it down step by step. In order to get to nationals, they have to, turn up to training 4 times a week. They have to put in the effort. They have to, bring their shoes and their equipment each time. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to put in the work. But yeah, so I think parents having an understanding of how you're going to get their kid to the goal that the kid's wanting, and, if the parent's wanting it too, you have an open communication line of, this is how I plan on doing it. Everyone's working hard to get them there, and we need to have an open communication line for it to work best.
That's a fascinating view on that in terms of communication between coach, player and parent. Just more recently, a school that my son attends, they did a parent-teacher-student interview as opposed to parent-teacher.
I love
It's
that.
the first time I've experienced that as a parent, and it was very fabulous and eye-opening because it's just normally parent-teacher. Like,
Exactly.
little Johnny's doing really well and blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. Any questions? No, we're okay, blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't really attack, but having the student there just changed the dynamic. It's like, if there was a problem, there's a three-way communication with that. Or like, you just, forgot this or do that, whatever. And I'm like, this is really interesting.
Yeah.
And sport maybe should look at a bit more of that.
I think
potentially,
so.
because maybe there's a time thing, of course, and there's volunteers and whatnot, but then it becomes a little bit professional, not professional, but look, really kind of grading, and you're in the A's, or you are going for something that there needs to be a little bit more, maybe coach, player, parent.
Yeah, I like that interview idea, because I think as a parent, if you were to turn up to a parent-teacher interview and get completely caught off guard by saying, Billy never turns up to his maths, or, he's been failing the last 3, and you're like, well, hang on a second.
Caitlyn always forgets, doesn't have her iPad on charge, and she gets, I get upset at her and she comes home upset going, I don't like the teacher. Yeah,
exactly. So I think having that, every party that's involved there is so beneficial, because then, you can catch them out if they're telling some fibs, because you've got both parties. So they could be telling, mum and dad something and then go back and tell teacher something else. So you want to make sure everyone's on the same.
And the underlying problem gets solved pretty quickly, as opposed to a domino compounding effect of like hatred, of like, I just really hate this teacher.
Yeah.
They always pick on me. Like, well, maybe if you brought your thing in
Yes.
and did this one thing, they wouldn't pick on you to be a good teacher, and the whole thing changes.
Yes. We need to implement this. This is
that's right. Caitlyn, I'm going to congratulate you on two fronts. One is your career so far, and obviously your ambition to get to 2028, and obviously people can help you out, which we've talked about that, and the walking QR code, if they see you on the street, then obviously hit you up too. But also congratulations on finishing your first ever podcast.
Thank you.
One-on-one. I hope you enjoyed it.
I did.
Thank you so much for coming on and giving your time, and all the best in the Nationals coming up, and all the best in the next couple of years, and really look forward to following your progress and showcasing your progress along the way.
Thank you so much.